Welcome to another video of our Kubernetes discussion video series. And in this video, we will talk about kubectl, which is a very important command line tool to interact with Kubernetes. And if you work with Kubernetes, this is something that you would be dealing with on a day-to-day basis and working a lot. Kubectl is a command line tool provided by Kubernetes, and it allows us to communicate with the control plane. It uses the Kubernetes API, just like everything else within Kubernetes. If you want to communicate with Kubernetes, if you want to communicate with the control plane, then you have to use the Kubernetes API. And it gets its configuration from this location, which is located under your home directory in the Kubernetes home folder, and the file name is config. This is the default location of the config file, but you can also pass additional config files through the environment variable and command line option to kubectl. Looking at the syntax for kubectl, this is how it is structured. So you're first going to specify which command you want to execute. Commands, which we'll see in the next slide, could be multiple. For example, it could be get, could be describe, it could be logs, and others. And then after that, you're going to specify the resource type you want to run the command on, and then additional parameters, which we're going to look into soon. And then you can, these are optional. You can first here, this is letting you specify the specific resource you want to run the command on, and then any flags that are specific to the command that you would like to pass. So here is an example of we are doing a get on a pod, on the pod resource type. And then, so this is the relationship. And then the name of the resource is Nginx. So the pod name is Nginx. And then here we are specifying the additional options for this get command. So here is a list. It's not a comprehensive list, but some of the very commonly used commands that you pass with kubectl. And for example, get, as you saw from the example in the previous slide, it lets you list resources. You can run get without specifying the resource name, in which case it is going to list the resources. And if you pass the specific resource name, then it is going to return information for that specific resource. Describe gives you additional details of the specific resource. And then there is apply that we use very frequently. This is how you pass the manifest file when you want to create or update resources, you use apply. Let's look into the resource types that are supported. Once again, this is not a comprehensive list, but some examples. So we have pods, deployment services, and these other resource types that you see. There is a short version of the resource type name as well that you are seeing here. For example, this. And for config map, this. Now looking at the flags, here are some flags are specific to the command that you are using. So here are some examples. Like for this would be for get, you specify which namespace you want to run the command within. And this would once again be an option that you will pass to get. And similarly, these are other options that you can pass. Okay, so this was a quick overview of the kubectl command line, and now we're going to see it in action. All right, we're going to see kubectl in action now. I have my AKS cluster set up in Azure, and I have kubectl installed as well. And if you look into my home directory, there is a kube folder, which is the default folder for Kubernetes, and you're going to see the config file here. So this is where all the config is. This is where I have already set up the config and connected to my AKS cluster. So that's why I'm able to run the kubectl commands, because this is the default cluster that is currently set up. So in this example, we're going to create a simple pod and then run some commands. using kubectl. So I have this file, the manifest file here, which I'm going to pass to the API server using kubectl. So if you recall from the slides, there is a kubectl apply command that we have, which we can use to submit manifest files to the API server. And here in this manifest file, we are just creating one pod, and that pod name is, the container name is going to be Nginx. And this is the Nginx image which it would be using. So here, this is the first example that you have seen of kubectl. Well, the second example. But yeah, so here I just created this resource and passed this manifest file to the API server using kubectl. Now, let's suppose I want to see a list of all the pods running. So I'm going to use the get command, and then the resource name I'm going to pass is going to be, the resource type I'm going to specify is going to be pod. Similarly, we can do the same for deployments. Currently, there are no deployments, so you're not going to see anything. For services, there is some default service running. We're going to cover all of this in upcoming discussions. But here, I'm just showing how you can pass different resource types to the get command. So here we saw one pod running. Let's get some details about that pod. So we're going to use get pod, and then we're going to specify the resource name. And now we have some information about that pod. It doesn't help much, because if we pass this additional option, then we're going to get some additional details about the pod. So here we are getting some additional details like IP, node name, and some other details as well. If you remember, I also showed you there's the describe command. So let's see that in action now. So I'm going to say describe pod. And now there is some additional information which is emitted by the describe command with regards to the specific resource, which is pod in this example. But this could be a deployment, this could be service. So the basic commands are the same, and then you can use it for specific resource type by specifying the resource type. Okay, and another example that I want to show is the edit. So you can just edit resources in line using the edit command. So I had to specify. So if you notice here, the image is an older Nginx image. So we're going to update to a newer one using the edit command. So here I'm going to specify the newer image now. Now, if I do describe, you will see that the image has been updated to 1.20 that we specified. So hope this gives you a good introduction of what kubectl is and how you can use it. And we would be using this extensively in our other hands-on videos, and you would be using it extensively when you are actually working on Kubernetes as well. Thanks for watching this video, and I'm going to see you in the next video.